He helped a young woman fix her torn dress, unaware she is his boss's daughter. Daniel was running late for work. His tie barely knotted as he hurried down the crowded street. He had an important morning meeting at the firm. His boss, Mr. Harrington, was notorious for noticing the smallest mistakes. But halfway down the block, Daniel noticed a young woman standing by a cafe patio, frozen in embarrassment. Her elegant lavender dress had caught on a chair, leaving a visible tear along the seam. She clutched her bag to cover it, cheeks flushed, while people passed by with quick glances. Something in Daniel made him stop. He stepped closer. "Excuse me?" he said gently. "Do you need help?" The woman hesitated but nodded, clearly flustered. Daniel quickly shrugged off his blazer and handed it to her. "Here, put this on while I fix it." He pulled out the small sewing kit he always carried. His late mother, a seamstress, had taught him the value of being prepared. Kneeling right there on the sidewalk, Daniel carefully stitched the torn seam. The woman's eyes softened as she watched him work, surprised by his patience and care. "There," Daniel said with a smile as he stood. "Good as new." The woman slipped off his jacket and handed it back, visibly relieved. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Maybe not," Daniel replied, "but I couldn't just walk by." She gave him a warm, almost secretive smile. "Thank you, Daniel." He froze. How does she know my name? Before he could ask, she slipped into a waiting car and was gone, shaking off the strange encounter. Daniel rushed to the office. The meeting had already begun, and Mr. Harrington was at the head of the table, stern as ever. Daniel slid into his seat, hoping he hadn't drawn too much attention, but moments later, the conference room door opened. Daniel's jaw dropped. It was her, the woman in the lavender dress. "Sorry to interrupt," she said smoothly, walking straight to the front. "I'm Emily Harrington. I'll be observing today's meeting." Mr. Harrington beamed with pride. "My daughter just returned from her studies abroad. She'll be shadowing me as she prepares to take on an executive role." Daniel sat frozen, his mind spinning. "The woman I helped is my boss's daughter." Emily glanced across the room, her gaze landing on Daniel. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. He quickly looked away, praying no one else noticed the heat rushing to his face. What he didn't know was that Emily had already decided out of everyone in the firm. She wanted to work with the man who hadn't hesitated to kneel on a busy street just to help a stranger in need. Daniel Morales had been at Harrington & Co. for 3 years, fresh out of grad school. He'd fought tooth and nail to land a position in one of the most prestigious investment firms in the city. Every day felt like a test. His boss, Richard Harrington, was a legend in the industry, but notorious for his coldness. Richard valued loyalty, results, and nothing else. That morning, Daniel was already stressed. His team was pitching a new project, and if it failed, his career might be over. He rushed down the street, going over numbers in his head, when fate threw him a curveball near a corner cafe. A young woman in a lavender dress stood frozen in distress. Her dress had caught on a chair, tearing down the seam. People passed by, whispering, but no one stopped. Daniel paused. She looked embarrassed, vulnerable. He walked over. "Excuse me, miss," he said softly. "Do you need a hand?" She hesitated, but nodded. Without a second thought, Daniel slipped off his blazer. "Here, put this on for now." From his pocket, he pulled out a tiny sewing kit. His mother, a seamstress, before she passed, had always insisted he carry one. Daniel crouched on the sidewalk, ignoring the stares of strangers, and stitched the seam with steady, careful hands. The young woman watched, her surprise turning into admiration. "You're actually really good at this," Daniel chuckled. "My mom taught me. She used to say, 'A stitch in time saves more than clothes.'" When he finished, the tear was barely noticeable. He handed her back the repaired dress with a smile. "There you go. Crisis averted." She slipped off his blazer and handed it back. You didn't have to do that. Thank you. Daniel shrugged. Anyone would have. Her lips curved in a knowing smile. Not anyone. Then she glanced at her phone. I have to go, but I won't forget this. Daniel. Daniel blinked. Wait, how do you know my? But before he could finish, she was whisked away into a sleek black car at the office. Daniel was already late. He slipped into the boardroom, heart racing. Richard Harrington sat at the head of the table, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Daniel sat quietly, trying to disappear. And then the doors opened. The young woman in lavender walked in, poised and confident. Sorry for the interruption, she said, walking to the front. I'm Emily Harrington. I'll be shadowing my father as I prepare to take on an executive role. Daniel's blood ran cold. Harrington, his boss's daughter. Emily's eyes swept across the room, then landed on him. For a split second, her lips curved in that same secret smile. Daniel quickly looked away, his ears burning. Over the next weeks, Emily joined meetings, projects, and team discussions. She was sharp, opinionated, and far from a spoiled heiress. To Daniel's surprise, she challenged ideas, asked difficult questions, and backed her arguments with research. But the unspoken tension between them simmered. Every time Emily's gaze lingered on him, Daniel's heart raced. He avoided her, terrified of the consequences. She's the boss's daughter. That's a career killer. One evening, after a late meeting, Emily caught up with him in the elevator. You're avoiding me, she said plainly. Daniel stiffened. I'm just focused on work. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Focused. Or scared my father will find out you rescued me in the street. He nearly choked. That was nothing. It wasn't nothing, Emily said firmly. Nobody else stopped. You did. And I don't forget things like that. The elevator doors opened. She stepped out, pausing only to add, You might be the only person in this building who treats me like a human instead of a Harrington. Don't lose that. Weeks turned into months. Emily and Daniel kept finding themselves thrown together on projects. The more they worked side by side, the more their connection deepened. She admired his integrity. He admired her determination. But Richard Harrington was no fool. He noticed the glances, the quiet smiles, the subtle closeness. One evening, he called Daniel into his office. I've built this company with blood and sacrifice, Richard said coldly. My daughter will inherit everything. I won't let anyone jeopardize that. Do you understand? Daniel's throat tightened. Yes, sir. But fate has a way of testing resolve. At the annual gala, Daniel found Emily again in that same lavender dress, the one he had stitched back together months ago. She leaned close and whispered, You helped me once when I was vulnerable. I don't care what my father says. I trust you. For Daniel, it was the moment of truth. Risk his career, or risk losing her. And as the music swelled, Emily extended her hand, the same young woman he once helped on a street corner. Now the daughter of the man who controlled his future. Daniel took her hand, knowing everything would change.